The testimony of Sebastian Williams was truly an interesting moment in the trial against the accused men. His testimony helped to get the grand jury to hand down an indictment for the crime. For the very first time, we have an actual witness that places Curt Jett, James Hargis, and Elbert Hargis at the scene of the crime, with guns in their hands, and where the guns were hidden after the fact. Come along with us as we sit in on one of the strongest witness testimonies that will be given during the first Cockrill murder trial of April 1905. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. What Sebastian Williams saw during the shooting. Sebastian Williams opens his testimony with what he saw from the window located in G.W. Finner's office in the courthouse. From this location, Williams was able to see across the street to the second floor of the Hargis store. It would be relatively safe to assume that this was the same testimony given to the grand jury as their investigation had stopped after he testified. This testimony was not challenged by the defense. According to the article in the Breathitt County News, Jackson, Kentucky, April 21, 1905, quote, Sebastian Williams, the next witness, said he has lived in Breathitt County all of his life. He said that he knew Jett, Britton, and James Hargis. He was in Jackson the day that Cockrill was shot and was with his brother, Cash Williams, noon, in the office of G.W. Finner, in the courthouse, when the shooting took place. He was near the window of the office, which was on the ground floor of the courthouse. He heard the shots and thought they were boards falling somewhere. He looked out of the window and saw Cockrill running down the street. Coming out of the front door of the courthouse, he saw several men in the hallway, but could not say who they were. Saw Curt Jett on the steps near the door. Witness looked toward the Hargis building and saw Jim Hargis standing at a window on the second floor. It looked like Hargis had a gun in his hand. Witness then showed the position of the gun held by Hargis. This was the first testimony of the day within any way connected James Hargis with the killing or any of the incidents either before or after the shooting. Witness went down the street to where Cockrill had fallen, unquote. Williams identified Judge James Hargis as the man who was standing on the second floor window of the Hargis store carrying a gun. He saw Hargis clearly enough that he was able to describe how Hargis carried his gun in that moment. This is the first time that this testimony had been given that directly links Judge James Hargis to a crime of murder of the town marshal, James Cockrill. We also see that even though he was in relatively close proximity to the shooters in the courthouse, Williams could not identify the men in the hallway. This might have been because of the excitement of the moment that Williams did not think to take stock of who was in the hallway. He did, however, state that he saw Curt Jett on the steps near the doorway. The first objection. Now we have the first objection in the case. What is wild about this objection is it is over what the last words of Cockrill was. Why would this be important to the case, and why would the defense attorneys want it stricken? Continuing on with the article in the Breathitt County News, quote, Colonel Allen then asked him if he heard Cockrill say anything, to which an objection was made, but before the court could rule on the question, the witness answered and said that he heard Cockrill say, quote, they killed me, unquote. The court sustained the objection and ordered this answer stricken from the record, unquote. Now this is very interesting. If we go back to the death of Town Marshal James Cockrill, first hit the newspapers in July and August of 1902, there are several articles that clearly states that his last words were, quote, they killed me, unquote. So, why would the defense want this statement removed from the record? Could it be that his statement involving the word they meant that there was more than one person that was involved in the plot to kill him? Who were they? Did Cockrill know who his killers were, even though he was running through the streets trying to dodge the bullets? Did he see them? Or did he assume that he knew who they were because of the feud that he had with the Hargis faction? Taking a step back. Let's take a step back to our previous videos concerning Bloody Breathitt. We know that Cockrill was leaving town under the threats made against his person that he was going to be killed. However, he returned to the town to retrieve his trunk and say goodbye to a woman whom he was dating at the time. She warned Cockrill to leave immediately because there was a plot to kill him that day. Did she overhear the plot? Or was it so well known that everyone in town knew that it was going to happen? Either way, Cockrill knew his life was in danger and who it was that was making the threats. Now, as the acting town marshal, surely at least one of his deputies would rise to the occasion to warn Cockrill of his impending doom. However, in none of the accounts can we find that any of them stepped up to either warn him or defend him during the shooting. Was it because to do so would also place a mark on their back? Returning to the trial. After leaving Cockrill where he laid in the road in front of the courthouse, Williams would testify as to what happened next. Continuing with the article in the Breathitt County News, quote, Williams said that he had returned to the courthouse and saw Curt Jett and Elbert Hargis come out of the courthouse and cross to Sewer's barn with something under their coats. He was allowed to indicate how the men carried their coats and how they were arranged when they returned from the barn, unquote. Now, we see the first sighting of Elbert Hargis in this case. Was Elbert the third man in the window as described by Charles Robbins and Riley Coldiron? From the distance that the men were from the courthouse window, it would be fairly easy to mistake brothers for each other. If the third man was Elbert Hargis, would this be the reason why witnesses would be reluctant to name him for fear of reprisals? Also, why were the men going to Sewer's barn? And what were they carrying under their coats? Was it their guns? Or could it have been something else that they were bringing from the courthouse? Now, this is a time in which people were open carry. If these men were not involved in the shooting, why did they have to go hide their guns in the first place? And why was the Sewer's barn chosen? Was it because the Hargis and the Sewells were one family? Would this not be a dead giveaway as to who contracted the killing? In our next video, we will cover the next witnesses and how they compare to the testimonies given at the Cynthiana trial of Curt Jett and Thomas White. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian feuds. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.